Well, good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. It is time for us to get into the papers this morning. That's the headlines. It's called Freshly Pressed. So just like you to know, before we get started, your contributions to any of the headlines we get the analysts to help us break down, deconstruct this morning is highly welcomed. So we look forward to reading all of those messages when you send them over as WhatsApp messages to 0809-444-0981. We look forward to get the message in this morning on 0809-444-0981. So that said, I'd like to make welcome this morning from the nation's capital. I make welcome Joseph Obari this morning.
Good morning, Omatseye. Thank you. To see you again. Good to see you. Ibi, good to see you. Welcome all listeners, please.
Good morning, AB. Bozimo, welcome.
Hi, good morning, Omatseye. Good morning, Joseph. Good morning to all of the ones.
Now the papers are set, so let's quickly pick it up this morning from the Guardian newspaper, and we'd like you, Joseph Obari, to quickly guide us through this paper. It's been, that's the last time, 3 years now since this incident occurred, and so it's more today. It's exactly 3 years. It's the anniversary to look at that event of our national history and how well we've done with it, for good or for bad. But let's get into this headline from the Guardian newspaper. #EndSARS. Activists lament non-implementation of the pro-panel recommendations. That's what the Guardian is running with this morning. So we'd like you to help us break all of this down, the recommendations, and what exactly is holding it down at this time.
I didn't have the benefit of reading all of the reports, but I know that one of the key elements of that report was to ensure that there is some bit of reform in the police force and a change from that attitude of brutality, more or less like military tactics of our police, to a more civilian oriented approach to law enforcement, where police officers imbibe the spirit of human rights and respect for people. But on that scale, we've seen that nothing has really changed intrinsically in the policeman in Nigeria, because we have seen cases of police brutality, even though it is no longer as organized as it was with the so-called SARS that was going around. Almost every SARS formation in this country was notorious for organized crime. So we're not seeing that, but the individual policeman has not changed his orientation. And what did we expect? Anyway, they're the same people. They have just not been called SARS, or as a group of people called SARS. But we've seen policemen lead people to ATM, withdraw money from their account at gunpoint. I mean, we've seen policemen beat up people. We've seen policemen shoot people dead. So there's nothing that we have complained about before that brought about EndSARS protest that has not manifested across the country, even in Lagos, where Lagos was like a model of it. The panel in Lagos was like a model of all the sittings that happened, where the recommendations we are talking about originated from. We've not seen any change in the police people, and that's because the training of the policeman has not changed. If you have gone to any police college and seen what it looks like, your heart bleeds. You will imagine, in fact, you will praise any policeman who is sane. No, seriously, you will praise any policeman who is sane, because it's only wild animals that you can bring up from such places called police colleges. At least the ones I've seen, they are nothing to talk about. I've read I've seen videos of police officers being trained, where they eat virtually no soup at all. It's like water and all that, and it's dehumanize a human being, break him down inside psychologically, and you throw him into the society. He's going to do anything on that society.
Yeah, okay.
So that's it. And then of course all the other issues about the justice system itself. and holding people without trial and all that. There has been some bit of activity there. The magistrates are supposed, based on the new criminal administration law, the magistrates are supposed to go to police stations. I've seen the judiciary talk about magistrates going to do that now. So at that level, maybe something bit of changes are happening as part of the recommendation. Yes. But any other thing has not really trickled down to any positivity.
Just before I let it slide here from that story, I see also in the report, it is stated here that even in Lagos, recently the government suspended the mass burial for about 103 bodies that are said to be related in that direction. So it seemed like even with all of these issues, even the bodies are still yet to be interred. That's what it looks like.
That was a very spectacular scandal for Lagos state government, because the government consistently denied people died in that protest or people being killed in that protest. Then eventually a memo surfaced, 103 bodies that they claimed were picked up Lagos as part of that protest, and they were classified as NSAS victims. The government documents were so indicting that it boggles the mind that anybody would want to tell lies, those such brazen lies. The excuse that nobody has come for those bodies does not justify or wash away the fact that people were killed. People died in that, and the government, they couldn't hide it. They called them victims. So if there are victims, there ought to be compensations. I read that the government says that up to now, nobody has come up to claim the bodies. Lagos is like a conundrum. I mean, people from all parts of Nigeria go into Lagos. Some people, they are not in touch with their families. Just because somebody has claimed the body doesn't mean they don't belong to anybody. You know, so it's a sad story, really.
Abi, you want to throw something in before we get to your paper?
Just two things or three. One, the kind of brutality that used to happen could only happen because the police were psychologically distant from the populace for many good reasons that Joseph has said. Secondly, that kind of psychological distance is what I'm witnessing with those who are in the ruling class, because it's only in a ruling class that is completely distant from the people that there's hunger in the land and people are trying to get 130 million naira vehicles. It's two sides of the same coin. Last of all, NSAS itself should never be forgotten for being one of the most peaceful, organized, sane, polite, legally contained, the people who organized it. And remember, there were no arrowheads. It was a movement of people and they organized themselves. It can actually be a model for some of the best that Nigeria has to offer, because they cleaned up after themselves, they provided food, they provided sanitation, they did everything. Never forget, those are the things I'll always take away from the heart of NSAS, apart from these tragic killings.
And this leads us to the Nation newspaper that you help us break down in addition now. It says Nigeria, EU signed over 900 million euros finance agreement for developmental projects. That's what it's stating here. So we would appreciate if you would help us see if we can break down these sectors and who's getting what from this developmental projects funding.
Why are we changing language? What is a financing agreement? Is that another word for a loan? Big two words for a four-letter word, loan. Remember the other day, we talked about $1.5 billion, which was being raised at some event, IMF. I just want people to recognize that it took $1.5 billion to build the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. These are the kind of monies we are getting. Other people have put it to use, and the world is coming to come and experience, admire, and spend money. Meanwhile, we take such loans and there's nothing to see at the end of the day. So in this case, the EU is about to give us 29 million for sustainable energy, 37 million for access to health services, 45 million, and then education support is 5.4 million. You have a teeming population. One of the smallest numbers on this entire 900 million is 5.4 million euros for educational support in the Northeast. We have some other big ones. Some big ticket items include, and I mean, this would be very great, Lagos Inland Waterway Project, 130 million euros. You know, I talked about Lagos being potentially not the Venice of Africa, but the Lagos of Africa. I don't even want to benchmark Lagos against Venice because Lagos has the potential to be better than Venice. Now, the biggest ticket item there is innovative and green SMEs, 200 million loans across Nigeria, and then access to agri-market rural roads. We've talked about food scarcity and hunger, and this is a good one because you can make all you want in the farm. If you cannot get it out in a timely manner, it will rot and spoil on site. So that is a very good one. I just feel that, and then also a little bit on electricity, just about 20 million euros for mini grids. I feel much more should go towards anything that will enhance energy because it enhances life and can potentially, lead to better productivity. At the end of the day, I don't have a problem with the ideas. Maybe I might tweak the targets a bit more, but fine. It's an initiative. It's a loan. How are we paying it back? That is the question. And the only thing we currently rely on is oil from the Niger Delta, fundamentally. So, as another side story, we're hearing that there's problems coming up with they had promised that the Port Harcourt refinery will be working by December. I'm hearing rumors that may not happen after all. I just want to ask those who say they're in charge of this country, can we please do one or two things right? Because right now, the Naira exchange rate, the healthcare crisis, the security is affecting everybody, no matter what party or supporter you are. We're all suffering the same thing. Well, apart from those who are in office, they are not suffering with us because they went to United Nations General Assembly and spent millions of dollars and Naira in equivalent. I just feel that this is not a bad thing. Let's call it what it is, a loan, and let us say how and when we're going to pay it off. There's no such thing as, please let me read the word, financing agreement. It's a loan. Stop trying to whitewash it.
This takes us to the Punch newspaper. Thank you so much, AB Bozimo, for that breaking down the newspaper headlines. Let's go to the Punch newspaper now, as this one says, strike, NLC accuses Lalong of undermining agreement with the federal government. So here we are barely some 11 days away from kicking down the can down the road, from that shutdown. Are we seeing the government acting in that direction to avert it? We thought we had a long time, but the month is coming to an end already. So help us walk through this story, Joseph. You would have to unmute, Mr. Joseph.
Sorry, my bad. Now this is coming because the NSA feels that the government is interfering in its internal processes because some group of persons from Lagos had gone to occupy the headquarters of the NSC in Abuja, allegedly sided and supported by the police. And we know what has been happening with the National Road Transport Workers group in Lagos and the strong arm tactics of one man, MC Olomo, who has been given so much influence and power in that place and what's going on. So what the NSA is protesting against is simply that they are not being allowed to run the organization the way they want, because that same group is now being given to conference at zonal level and the national level. It's a way of more or less breaking the NLC. We know that the NLC can be a very powerful organ for pressing or pushing for interest of people. And of course, we know how they fight for workers. So I'm afraid it is a deliberate attempt to break the backbone of the NLC. And it is, unfortunately, this story, in terms of the journalistic part of it, yes, we have not heard the voice of the minister or his representation in this story. It's only one-sided, so I won't say that the rebuttal is not there. But the point is, if what they are saying here is true, then it forebodes really bad signs for unionism, and for the labor minister to be fingered in connection with this is a bad omen, and it shouldn't be encouraged at all. And I tell the NLC, instead of resorting to strike, go to court. You can restrain the minister from acting against, in the interest of your organization. If they are doing things that is not right, then go to court. Don't punish the whole nation by declaring strike action on something you can go to court to seek redress. Yeah, that's the point.
All right, thank you very much. The next paper now would be the Guardian newspaper, and this one is saying, this next paper, the Guardian says, Reps Committee advocates salary increase for teachers, university lecturers, and I see a certain amount being banded there that even the list should be about $1 million for a teacher. It seems some persons, they might have a drove of person heading to want to become teachers if this becomes a reality. But AB, help us make sense of this story.
Every story has context. I remember recently we heard that there's a possibility that teachers are going to be recruited from foreign countries. They are seeking Nigerian teachers to come and teach in their countries. It's happened with the medical professionals and so on. But I want to take the first paragraph of this story. The House of Representatives Committee on University Education has called for salary increment for primary, secondary, university teachers. Who are they calling? Who are they advocating to? Within their hands, they have the levers to pass a law that must make it binding on the nation for it to happen. So who are they calling? Yes, the numbers look attractive, that a teacher as a minimum in primary school should earn $250,000. Wow. A secondary school teacher should earn $500,000. Marvelous. And at the minimum, a lecturer in university should earn is $1 million. I personally would 100% support this, because there is no more noble profession, in my view, than teaching. And if you don't teach people from the fundamentals upwards, you have a society devoid of hope, which is more or less a lot of what is causing people to relocate. They feel there's no hope. So they're calling during a workshop on this, and they're making all the right statements and all that. But who are they calling to? I don't see who else except people in a mirror in front of them should be answering that call. Sitting here, it's desirable to me, but I have no power to make it happen. So rather than putting all these things where they will show up in the newspapers as a call, I would much prefer the news when they say the House of Representatives has mandated, has passed a bill, has proposed the following, this, and this. We can now debate it in their house, because at the end of the day, they're the people. Again, I'd much rather, there's one thing that goes viral on social media that amuses me, and I'll refer to it in a jocular manner this morning. They say, doctors are leaving, teachers now are leaving, nurses are leaving, pharmacists are leaving. The only people who don't leave are politicians. It would be so interesting if the politicians will leave us and let the other people come back and make Nigeria great.
Okay, I see how you got that out of the way now. So let's let the listener know we'll be picking up the messages in a short while. Let's get your reaction to any of the headlines we've treated so far. Let's get that on WhatsApp on 0809-444-0981. We expect to see messages. I see them piling already, but be sure we'll get to that shortly. So, Joe, we'd like you to help us clarify this with your legal background and international diplomacy expertise on this one. Let's see if it can work in this direction too. We will adopt principle of reciprocity in issuance of visas to foreigners. That's what the federal government is talking about here. So what exactly does it mean if this government wants to begin to use this procedure or tactics to get a fair deal for Nigerians?
Well, it's some kind of diplomacy policy where governments decide to give. Let's use a very raw language, tit for tat. You treat me this way, I treat you this way. So countries behave in such a way that they are able to agree on certain things that are reciprocal to one another. So in case of visa, for example, I mean, just last month I traveled to Zambia, and I had to apply for visa. This is an African country. I had to apply for visa, how to do this, and even it was online. And when I got, the point is I had to pay. Coming from United States, you just need to present your passport at the border there, at the airport, and you enter the country. Meanwhile, a fellow African country thinks that you have to get a visa, you have to do this. So what the minister is simply saying is here, we need to begin to respect ourselves. And I like what he said somewhere. He said, if you don't take yourself, if you consider yourselves useless, people will treat you as useless. If you consider yourself as useful, I mean, the people will take you useful. So any country, Nigeria allows other countries' citizens to come in here without visa. They just come on visa on arrival, give you visa. And then, of course, when we want to go there, it's like, even in Kenya, I was passing through Kenya. If you know how they were jittery about, just because you're a Nigerian, as if you're coming to invade their country and so on. We have to begin to respect ourselves. We have to demand respect for our citizens. And it's not enough to just say it. We want to see the actions. When your citizens are in trouble in other countries through transit or whatever, what is your intervention? How do you respond to it? Where allegations where Nigerians who are in difficulties abroad say that their embassy staff take side with the government of the host country. Those sort of things have to change. And if we have a minister who can overhaul the entire system concerning immigration and external affairs, then okay, we're better off.
Before I get to the messages, I'd like you to, because you touched on it briefly, so I'd just like you to speak briefly on it also. Just recently, from next month, South Africa and Ghana, there's what you call visa waiver now. Citizens can travel without getting visas. Also, by January next year, Kenya and South Africa would have that same strategy going on. But here we are supposed to be the big giant of this continent where everything should start with us first. What does this say about how we're perceived right now?
Well, the point, it's always the case that the people who are in charge, just like in the last story we were talking, AB was talking about, the members, the people in government who are taking decisions are not thinking through the choices and the decisions they're making on behalf of the country. Well, if you take those decisions with the interest of your country first, then you're able to take decisions that are very, very beneficial to everybody in the country, and the citizens, and protect the interest of the citizens. Nigeria has got a lot to offer the world, and to Africa in particular. But are we measuring up to those things? What's our state of our tourism industry? Yeah, before you are even wooing people to come in, how well have you developed your tourism? Those are the key things, you know.
So let's get to see what the messages are looking like this morning. First, we'll get to Benai Aigboye from Amuwo Dofin. Says, may the soul of the countrymen and women who lost their lives at the 2010-20 rest in the bosom of the Lord, and may the blood spilled at the toll gate, if it's despite what has happened, lead to eventual cleansing of the land. And that's from Amuwo Dofin Benai Aigboye sent in that one. Next, I would find a message here from Kende. Okay, Kende just simply would tell me, say this morning, whatever problem we have in this country is just because we are not serious about tackling them. Dami from the Kejas comes up with this one from Oshodi saying, the Nigerian police and other institutions of state exist in the way they are because the political elite want it to be that way. Those institutions exist to protect the elite from the rest of us until they can't. Now I have a message from Yemi from Marina saying, Well, please, how do you claim bodies from a government that at the time continued to say that there were no victims or casualties? Now, I would find Abbas Oladepo's message this morning. It says, the Lagos state government did not say people did not die during the NSAS. What they said is that nobody died at Lekki toll gate. People died in other places during the saga. We saw how people were killed in Fagba, Wushin, and other places. We even saw how people killed policemen and some other security personnel on TV. Now, the event came out around the period to say that the government came out around that time to say that people should come and claim the corpses. So we should balance this in the right perspective. It's just an unfortunate event that we do not wish to happen in the country again. Abbas Oladepo. And then I go to pick up this one from Peter from Frestack. He says, let politicians also leave Nigeria so that we can have a breath of fresh air. The national citizens are enjoying the dividends of good governance in Nigeria. In reverse, Nigerians pay for the expensive lifestyle of politicians. Now I've got Ayo in here with a message this morning. This is respect for Nigerians abroad. It goes two ways. Nigerians abroad need to stop embarrassing Nigeria abroad. Take a look at the UAE, for example. Current government is only trying to restore the respect there. On the NSAS panel implementation, it says, yes, we have not seen enough changes, but it won't happen overnight. It will take more years to exit the bad eggs from the police. The changes have been gradual in a view. Also, police PR handling has improved and they're taking more attention to social media and becoming more responsive. Thank you very much. Okay, I see the other one for my eyes only. I appreciate you. So what else would I find here? I see more than one. On the 130 bodies that are victims of the NSAS movement, it is important to carry out detailed forensic analysis on victims to know the actual cause of death. The information should be archived for future use. So Eddie, let's get back and see if we can throw in one more before we go right now. And that will be, if we can do this in about a minute, federal government to pay 500 million now for the release of 4,000 inmates, according to the Interior Minister. Why?
Well, I was going to speak a bit on the earlier story regarding visa, and I'll just say this, it's nice to hear the Interior Minister making those very rah-rah statements about, hey, take how you are seen is how are Nigerians seen? We've heard too many stories of Nigerians going to the embassies in their countries and being maltreated. Of course, a foreign country is going to treat you how you treat yourself. How do Nigerians live inside Nigeria? You have a situation where people are dealing with hunger and those who are in charge are giving themselves luxuries. That is how Nigerians are going to be treated. So it's not about, yes, it's fine to do visa upon reciprocity. First of all, ask yourself, who wants to come to your country and why? Yes, we know internally we have a lot to offer because every time a Nigerian leaves this country, he excels. So the problem is not the Nigerian, but the context. Let's make this country good and others will want to flow in. Then we can put up these borders. Now, to the story of inmates, they have some of them who are there and all it would take is paying their fines. So the government is putting funds together to ensure that things that can be resolved with a simple fine payment will be done. And hopefully over that process, you will reduce the number of inmates from 79,000 to 75,000. For those 4,000 people who it only took a fine to release them, that would be a welcome break that they deeply deserve. So kudos for that initiative.
All right, thank you very much. And on that note, we get to wrap up the conversation this morning on Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. But not without saying big thank you to Joseph Obari for his time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. A nice weekend to you and everybody else.
You. And I also say big thank you to AB Bozimo also for his time.
Have a wonderful day, Omatseye, Joseph, and to all the wonderful listeners, a great weekend ahead. Thank
you so much. Have a great day, gentlemen. And then I say thank you especially to Ayo, Gilbert, Idima Puza, Gary Newton, Dami from Ikeja, Yemi, Oladepo Abbas, Keinde Olaniga. I see all your messages. Join me in about, 14 minutes for the locker room. It'll be time for Tega Onojaife for sports.